this, we're going to cover episodes 8, 9, and 10 in order to wrap everything up. And pretty much what we cover in this is just going to be the tail ends of administrations or else the post White House lives of these ladies. Starting off with Betty, pretty much it just skips over the whole Jimmy Carter versus Gerald Ford thing, and it just goes into her post White House life, which is kind of lonely. Her kids are all off doing things, and while Susan checks in, Susan isn't there on a day-to-day basis. So Betty pretty much has nothing to do but drink, and when she meets some neighbors who like to party a little bit, she drinks herself to the point of becoming a noticeable alcoholic, and when you add in the pill popping, it becomes an issue. The kind of issue that Susan decides it needs to be addressed, and the family just can't ignore anymore. And with that comes a series of interventions, all of which just embarrasses Betty, but it embarrasses her to the point of getting help, thus leading to her getting better and the creation of the Betty Ford Clinic, for she realizes that when it comes to that area, there isn't any place for people to go who had problems like she does. And that's pretty much the end of her story, with the Betty Ford Clinic being opened up. In regards to Michelle's storyline, it's pretty much her dealing with the Trayvon Martin situation, her dealing with the Eric Garner thing, and you've seen that between her and also Malia, a lot of animosity about what the presidency can and can't do and what they can and can't do as citizens. But things really come to a head when Trump runs for election, and you can see a bit of a complicated feelings about it. At least when it comes to Michelle and having to campaign for Hillary, especially after all Hillary said or implied during the 2008 campaign when she was going against Barack. But less of two evils in that situation is get on the Hillary campaign, help her out, and with that hope that Trump, who he is, that hopefully her speaking out against him and the whole grabbing by the pussy thing and trying to make Hillary likable the way that she made Barack likable, maybe that'll give her the victory. Now, as we know, Hillary won a popular vote, but in America, popularity doesn't mean a damn thing. You have to get the electoral vote, and she lost that, thus leading to Trump winning. And of course, whether you're talking about Malia, Sasha, Barack, or Michelle, none of them are happy, but they skip over the whole transition of power thing for the most part. Instead, it kind of fast forwards to showing Michelle releasing her book Becoming, and just recounting all she went through in order to get there. And throughout the 3 episodes, we saw her deal with discrimination when it comes to going to Princeton. When she was in Princeton, a woman's mother deciding to switch her out of the dorm room that she was going to share with someone because they didn't want their daughter with a black girl for whatever reason. And at the end, Michelle's just happy that she's come so far. She's been such an example for black girls, black people in general, and that she served a purpose besides, redecorating. Which leaves us with Eleanor Roosevelt. Her storyline towards the end of this season is basically everything she does in regards to World War II. Whether it's trying to push Franklin to not be so neutral and isolationist when it comes to Jewish refugees trying to come over and, keep from dying in Hitler's concentration camps. Or there is the issue of, her starting to really gain her gaining influence in the Roosevelt administration, and because of that, Hick feeling like she's getting neglected to the point where she might as well gracefully exit now, rather than continue to try to live in this fantasy that her and Eleanor could really be a real couple. But in Hick's defense, neither Eleanor nor Franklin to a certain degree really seem able or capable of committing to somebody faithfully, because from what we learn, Franklin is still messing with Lucy, who's Eleanor's former assistant, all the way up to his deathbed. And when it comes to Eleanor, she kind of doesn't care, because when she's confronted by Anna about how she was as a mother, she just admits that she has a bit of a difficulty when it comes to loving people. She knows she's capable of it, and she's definitely capable of receiving it, but in terms of giving people what they need, rather than what she's willing to give or even has the capacity to, it's a whole different thing. Now, as for what she is shown doing after the President Roosevelt died, They touch upon her time in the UN, especially when it comes to establishing a basic human rights Magna Carta, but as we've seen thus far when it comes to all the first ladies, especially Eleanor, they don't really get into the meat and potatoes of things. They just kind of give you a good overview, add in some dramatic moments to kind of, keep people interested, and that's it. In terms of highlights, I definitely appreciate how in the tail end they kind of boosted Michelle up a little bit. They gave her the Betty treatment in terms of really using her younger version in order to kind of help you understand how Michelle ended up the person that we get to know in this season. And also when it comes to her addressing Hillary in the 2008 campaign, it reminded you of why Hillary had so many troubles when it comes to not just her history in regards to what her life was before the 2016 campaign, but everything that made Hillary a bit of an unlikable person. And granted, as she notes, I believe in the 9th episode, Hillary Clinton is probably the most qualified presidential candidate America has probably had in generations, especially if you don't want to prop up going to war as a major advantage of becoming president. But as we've seen, it's not just about you're having the right credentials. You have to be someone that's likable, someone who, I don't want to do that whole you could have a beer with thing because beer tastes like piss, but you have to have more than credentials. It's like in our regular day jobs. It's a beautiful thing if you have the college degree, if you have the right network and all that, but if you come off like an ass, if you come off of somebody who just, as much as you might be good at the job, you'll be a pain in the neck to deal with on a regular basis, you're not going to get the job. And again, taking full note, she won the popular vote, but as we've seen when it comes to American politics, the popular vote doesn't really matter. What they truly want is that you have to be able to have a coalition of both northern, southern, eastern, Republican, Democrat, whatever states. And if you can't get that, you can't get a bit of a coalition, for lack of a better way of putting it, you don't win. And unfortunately, we saw what happened. Hillary didn't win, and as much as Michelle tried to do what she did for Barack and make her seem likable and all that, you got to remember that Barack didn't have the same baggage that Hillary did. Whether you want to talk about Bill Clinton, whether you want to talk about her time as Secretary of State, her time as a New York Senator, or all the various sound bites that she's given over the decades of her being in public office. So there was really only so much Michelle could do. And again, as we said in one of the past episodes, a lot of when it comes to Michelle and who she interacts with, it just makes you note that Michelle knows how to give a good speech. She knows how to give a good slogan. And when it comes to these people she's trying to help, they see the value in her being around, but I don't think they truly understand the value of her presence and the value that the American people have when it comes to listening to her. Because in the long run, while she was definitely able to help Barack, I think when it came to Hillary, it's like I came here to see and listen to Michelle, but still middle fingers up to Hillary. And for the last highlight, I would say that in terms of how the show ended, yes, there's still that issue of feeling like they could have went further, especially with Eleanor's story, because she did so much more than what this show covers. But at a certain point, you have to realize that this show couldn't do everything. It can't cover every single last monumental moment. It can't be a biography in the form of 10 episodes for each woman. It just wanted to hit significant historic points, give these first ladies' point of view, and when it came to their post-White House life, just let you know that their story didn't end it just because their husbands were no longer president. In terms of on-defense topics, I really only have one when it comes to the 3 episodes, and that's just wishing they did more with Sophie Underwood. Her role as Michelle's daughter, you can kind of see, especially in the last 3 episodes, as her character gets more and more frustrated about the Trump campaign, racism, and stuff like that, that Viola Davis and Sophie Underwood could have real good back and forth, but unfortunately, they're stuck in these characters that unfortunately don't have the ability to have that strong dynamic, or at least to have a dynamic which will allow both actresses to really show what they can do. which only can leave you to hope that these two might get reunited in another series. Hopefully, one where they're not based off of real people, and in that they can hopefully give us what we should have gotten. At least in terms of Lexi Underwood really getting to show that diversity that she has with her talents, and Viola Davis, whether she's doing her usual crying to the point of snot coming out her nose or whatever. I mean, that's her signature at this point. I just hope that one day these two get to reunite, whether it's a mother-daughter role, mentor, boss, whatever, and really get to collaborate or even have their characters clash in a way that shows what both are capable of, because I firmly believe Lexi Underwood is definitely who's going to become the next person that a lot of younger actresses get compared to. But while she's getting the opportunities to do that, I don't think she gets the opportunities on a mainstream level to consistently show that she is that person, even though Sneakerella was definitely better than I expected it was going to be. So let's just do an overall season review real quick. Overall, I feel like this show did not really... I would say this show definitely did not fully encompass what each First Lady did. It definitely gave a big boost to Betty Ford and who she is, beyond, the Betty Ford clinics and her husband being a one-term president. But in terms of Eleanor, it just disrespected her legacy. It disrespected who she was before Franklin. It didn't really go deep into who she was during the Franklin Roosevelt administration. It touching upon her potentially being a lesbian felt kind of like coerced, like it had to address this thing because so many people were probably questioning about it. And then when it came to her post-Roosevelt years, it really diluted what Eleanor Roosevelt did in this country, and especially her role as a First Lady, because even though First Lady is still not a title that's codified or anything like that, I would say Eleanor Roosevelt put such an impression on what a First Lady can be. It's surprising that she didn't kind of push for that to become something more because of all that she did and all that she was capable of. And then when it comes to Michelle, it's kind of like when you see these modern day biopics, whether it's TLC, New Edition, whatever, it's like we know so much already and it feels too soon. So it kind of makes you wonder what really could we have gotten out of this, especially since it's unauthorized, it's not with them consulting, so it's all just a bunch of hearsay, and it's not to the level of The Crown where you feel like this could definitely be what they say. But I don't know. I won't say that this didn't need to be made, because sometimes the performances were good, sometimes the writing was good. It's just, it was so inconsistent throughout the middle that even with having a good end, I still kind of question. I just question why did they feel the need to put these three together and then push it out there. And it makes me hope that if they do a second season, maybe they find people that, I mean, let's be real. If it was going to predict who's going to be in the second season, it would probably be Jackie Kennedy, just because of all that happened between the Kennedys and not being a famous family. So going from Roosevelt to a Kennedy makes sense. I would say probably Hillary Clinton, just because it's a controversial figure, and I think in a way like Eleanor, they could probably try to like compact all of her story into one thing and more than likely fail like they did Eleanor, but it still could be interesting to watch. And I would say, just to throw a Republican in there, because Betty Ford was the only Republican for this season, probably Laura Bush. I think that's the name of George Bush's wife, the second one, the younger one, who was, and just cover 9/11 and everything that led up to Barack Obama getting elected. So that way, there's some kind of form of connection between season 1 and 2. If there is going to be a season 2, I don't know.